world has always tried to say Filipinos are replaceable, but a brand new record just proved the exact opposite. The Philippines is irreplaceable, and trust me, this changes everything. If you're proud to be Filipino, hit that like button, subscribe, and type unbeatable in the comments, and I'll give you a heart. Now, let's uncover the record the world can't ignore. For decades, the world treated Filipino workers as if they were interchangeable. Valuable, yes, but ultimately replaceable. Governments and corporations believed that if Filipinos left, someone else could easily take their place. But here's the truth. That illusion just collapsed. A brand new record has proven once and for all that Filipinos are not just important, they're irreplaceable. And this time, the numbers are so staggering that even world leaders can't deny it. The record? Filipinos are now officially the largest group of overseas healthcare workers in the world. Nurses, caregivers, midwives, medical technicians in hospitals from New York to London, Tokyo to Riyadh, the heartbeat of modern healthcare belongs to the Philippines. In 2025, reports confirmed that Filipino nurses make up more than 4% of the entire nursing workforce in the United States, the single largest foreign-born group. In the United Kingdom, over 40,000 Filipino nurses are registered with the NHS, making them one of the largest communities keeping the system alive. Japan has built entire visa programs specifically for Filipino caregivers. And in the Middle East, Filipino healthcare workers have become the backbone of hospitals, from Saudi Arabia to the UAE. But here's the shock. These weren't temporary placements. These weren't just side roles. They were structural, permanent, and vital. When COVID-19 brought the world to its knees, the cracks in every country's healthcare system showed. And when local workers refused to take the hardest, riskiest jobs, who stepped in? Filipinos. In fact, studies after the pandemic revealed that Filipino nurses were disproportionately represented among deaths in the US healthcare system, not because they were careless, but because they were placed on the front lines where the risk was highest. They took the shifts others wouldn't, they faced the danger others avoided, and they paid with their lives. That isn't just service, that's sacrifice. Then the confession came. In 2024, US and European hospitals admitted openly, without Filipino workers, their healthcare systems would collapse. That's not exaggeration. That's not patriotism. That's a cold, hard truth, a record-setting truth. And it proves something Filipinos always knew. The world depends on them more than it ever admitted. And take a closer look. In the US, Filipino nurses number over 150,000, the highest immigrant nursing group. In Canada, nearly 1 in every 20 healthcare workers is Filipino. In Japan, caregivers from the Philippines are in such demand that local language schools have exploded just to train them. Saudi Arabia employs tens of thousands of Filipinos in its hospitals, often preferring them over other foreign workers because of their discipline and compassion. This isn't coincidence. This is a global pattern, and it's now a global record. But how did Filipinos reach this level? The easy answer is English fluency and affordability, but the real answer runs deeper: empathy, resilience, and adaptability. Healthcare isn't just about skill, it's about trust. Patients in pain don't just need medicine, they need care, patience, and kindness. And time after time, Filipinos deliver exactly that. It's why patients request Filipino nurses by name. It's why doctors fight to keep them on staff, and it's why governments bend rules to hire more of them. Then the bigger picture emerges. If Filipinos make up the world's largest overseas healthcare workforce, what does that mean? It means every nation, from America to Japan, has become dependent on Filipino labor in ways they can't easily replace. Train locals? They don't last. Hire elsewhere? Quality drops. Build robots or AI? They lack the human touch. Replace Filipinos? Impossible. That's why the world can't let go, and why this new record is so powerful. Let's make it personal. Meet Angelica, a nurse from Pampanga who moved to New York in 2019. During the pandemic, she worked 6 straight weeks without a full day off, managing ICU patients when hospitals overflowed. Her colleagues admit she carried the ward. Her patients' families still send her messages years later, thanking her for saving lives. Multiply Angelica's story by thousands, and you understand the weight of this record. It isn't just numbers, it's names, faces, and lives touched. But the recognition is uneven. While foreign governments confess they can't survive without Filipinos, back home in Manila, many nurses are underpaid, earning a fraction of what their overseas counterparts make. It's a painful irony, celebrated abroad, forgotten at home. This contradiction reveals why the record matters so much, because it's not just about pride, it's about power. It proves that Filipinos aren't just another workforce, they're a global necessity. Then the narrative flips. For years, the Philippines was branded a third world country exporting labor. Now, the export has become the world's lifeline. This record proves Filipinos aren't just workers filling gaps, they're holding up entire systems. And that's something no government, no corporation, and no rival workforce can deny. The truth is clear. The world can't replace Filipinos. Not in hospitals, not in clinics, not in elderly care homes, and the record of being the largest overseas healthcare workforce just put that reality in writing. If you believe the world should finally give Filipinos the recognition they deserve for keeping nations alive, type respect in the comments. Let's flood this space until nobody can deny the truth anymore. This record isn't just about healthcare, it's about identity, it's about dignity, and it's about the world realizing what Filipinos have been proving silently for decades, that they are not optional, they are essential. The record was shocking enough. Filipinos now make up the largest overseas healthcare workforce in the world. But the deeper truth is this. It's not just about healthcare. This record is the clearest proof of something bigger. The world can't replace Filipinos in any of the critical industries that keep the global system alive. Everywhere you look, Filipinos are there. In hospitals, at sea, in corporate offices, in classrooms, on construction sites, even in technology hubs. They're the quiet force that makes other nations function. And the reasons go far beyond numbers. But why Filipinos? Why not India, Indonesia, Mexico, or other nations with large populations? On paper, those countries should be able to supply labor just as easily. They have millions of young workers, growing economies, and better infrastructure. Yet time and again, governments and corporations choose Filipinos. Then the answer becomes clear. It's about qualities that can't be measured by GDP charts or demographics: resilience, adaptability, compassion, and global fluency. Start with language. In 2024, the EF English Proficiency Index ranked the Philippines as one of the highest in Asia, outscoring China and rivaling Singapore. For international employers, this means less training, fewer misunderstandings, and smoother operations. Call centers from New York to Sydney choose the Philippines because Filipinos don't just speak English. They communicate with empathy and cultural nuance. That's why the BPO industry generated $35 billion, 0 cents in 2024 alone, employing 1.4 million workers and handling the bulk of American customer service. But if it was just language, anyone could train for that. The secret lies in adaptability. Filipinos thrive anywhere. Japan, Saudi Arabia, Canada, Australia. They learn new languages, adjust to new cultures, and adapt to foreign customs with remarkable speed. Japan's government has openly admitted that its elderly care system would collapse without Filipino caregivers. Why? Because Japanese youth avoid these difficult jobs. Filipinos step in, learn Japanese, respect the culture, and excel. That's not replaceable. Then there's resilience. Life abroad is rarely easy. Migrant workers face discrimination, loneliness, and exploitation. Yet Filipinos endure and continue, often with a smile. Employers notice. In survey after survey, foreign managers rank Filipinos as more reliable and more willing to go above and beyond than other nationalities. It's why cruise lines, airlines, and shipping companies specifically request Filipino staff. And speaking of shipping, over 400,000 Filipino seafarers man the world's vessels, accounting for nearly 30% of global crews. Without them, cargo ships stall, ports back up, and shelves in Europe and America go empty. But some argue, can't automation replace them? AI in call centers, robots in hospitals, autonomous ships. Technology is advancing fast. Yet time and again, nations learn a simple lesson. Machines can't replace human touch. A robot can lift a patient, but it can't comfort them. AI can answer a phone, but it can't empathize with a grieving customer. Ships may steer themselves, but they still need experienced crews when storms hit. Then the irony hits. Countries like the US, Japan, and even China, nations that invest billions into technology, still return to one conclusion: they need Filipinos. Not as a backup, as the foundation. The record of being the largest overseas healthcare workforce is only the headline. The hidden reality is that Filipinos also dominate in seafaring, outsourcing, and caregiving. Industries worth trillions globally. Take the diaspora. With 12 million Filipinos overseas, the Philippines has one of the largest global workforces abroad. They send home over $38 billion, 0 cents in remittances annually, making up almost 8% of the country's GDP. These remittances don't just help families, They stabilize entire economies. And that's another reason why the world can't replace Filipinos. They're already embedded everywhere, forming networks that link countries across continents. But what about other migrant groups? Yes, India sends IT workers, Indonesia sends domestic helpers, Mexico sends laborers to the US, each nation contributes. But none match the scale, diversity, and global reputation of Filipinos. When hospitals in the US recruit, they look to the Philippines. When ships need crews, they call Manila. When corporations need call centers, they set up in Cebu. No other country dominates across so many industries at once. Then consider culture. Filipinos bring something intangible but invaluable: joy, humor, and a sense of family. Employers say it makes workplaces better, patients happier, and teams more loyal. That emotional factor is what makes Filipinos not just workers, but trusted members of foreign societies. That's why patients in London ask for Filipino nurses by name. That's why employers in Singapore and Hong Kong often say, "We only trust Filipinos with our family." That's why US companies openly admit that customer satisfaction scores are higher with Filipino call center agents. Miguel, a seafarer from Iloilo, once steered his crew through a typhoon in the Pacific. The captain later told him, "Without you, we would have lost everything." That's not just skill. That's the difference between survival and disaster. Or consider Leah, a call center worker in Davao who handled a US customer's emergency banking crisis. She stayed on the line for 2 hours, calming the client until everything was resolved. Later, the American wrote a letter to the company praising not the brand, but the Filipino who saved my peace of mind. These are small stories, but when multiplied by millions, they show why Filipinos are irreplaceable. But here's the catch. While the world benefits, Filipinos often pay the price. Long separations from families, low wages at home, dangerous work abroad. They win respect overseas, yet sometimes struggle to find it in their own country. And that's why this record matters. It forces the world to admit what it already knows deep down. Filipinos are not optional. They're essential. Then the future becomes clearer. With global populations aging and birth rates falling, demand for healthcare, caregiving, and adaptable workers will only grow. By 2050, the UN projects that 1 in 6 people will be over 65. Nations from Japan to Europe are already scrambling to prepare, but they know one thing: they can't do it without Filipinos. This isn't just today's victory, it's tomorrow's certainty. That's the deeper meaning of the record. It's not just a milestone, it's proof of permanence. Proof that in the grand machinery of globalization, there's one part that cannot be replaced: the Filipino. Comment pride if you believe it's time the world stops treating Filipinos as temporary help and starts honoring them as the backbone of global industries. Because this record doesn't just show Filipinos are irreplaceable in healthcare, it shows they are irreplaceable everywhere. We've seen the record. We've seen the proof. Filipinos are irreplaceable across healthcare, shipping, outsourcing, and caregiving. But here's the real question. What does this mean for the future? Is this just another headline to celebrate, or is it a turning point that could redefine how the world treats Filipinos forever? But history gives us a warning. For decades, Filipinos have been hailed abroad as heroes, modern-day heroes, in fact, the very phrase used for OFWs, yet at home, their sacrifices often translate into little more than remittances. The world claps, but the system doesn't change. And many fear this new record will be the same. More proof of Filipino strength, without the reward Filipinos deserve. Then the opportunity emerges. Because this record isn't just symbolic, it's leverage, it's bargaining power on a global scale. For the first time in history, the Philippines has undeniable proof that other nations depend on its people. And when you are indispensable, you don't just provide, you negotiate. Look at Japan. By 2025, over 1.7 million Japanese citizens were over the age of 90. Their elderly care crisis is so severe that Tokyo had to create new bilateral agreements with Manila just to bring in thousands of Filipino caregivers. Japan doesn't just want them, it needs them. That's leverage. The Philippines can demand better training programs, better salaries, and stronger protection for its workers. Look at the US. More than 150,000 Filipino nurses work in American hospitals, while 4.2 million Filipino Americans fuel the US economy. Imagine if even a fraction of those nurses stopped working. Emergency rooms would close. Waiting times would double. Healthcare systems would crumble. America knows this, which is why it continues to recruit directly from the Philippines. That's leverage. Look at the shipping industry. With over 400,000 Filipino seafarers manning the world's fleets, international trade would collapse without them. Roughly $7 trillion, 0 cents worth of goods cross the seas every year, and Filipinos are steering those ships. If they disappeared tomorrow, economies from Europe to Asia would face shortages within weeks. That's leverage. But here's the twist. Leverage only works if you use it. If Filipinos and the Philippine government treat this record as just another source of pride without demanding change, then nothing shifts. Workers will still be underpaid at home. Families will still be separated. Corruption will still eat away at progress, and the Philippines will remain a supplier of labor instead of a respected equal. Then comes the vision. Imagine what could happen if this record became the foundation of a national strategy. Imagine if the Philippines turned global dependence on Filipinos into global respect for Filipinos. Instead of begging for recognition, the country could demand it. Instead of simply exporting workers, it could export influence. The strategy is simple. To negotiate stronger agreements with countries like Japan, the US, and Saudi Arabia, ensuring Filipinos get not just jobs, but protections, fair pay, and pathways to permanent residency if they want it. Invest in world-class training centers at home, turning the Philippines into the premier exporter of skilled labor with guaranteed contracts abroad. Shift from survival to leadership by demanding that international companies investing in Filipino workers also invest back into Philippine communities. It's not impossible. In fact, other nations have already done it. India used its IT workforce to become a global technology hub. South Korea used its pop culture to export K-pop and K-dramas, turning influence into billions. Why can't the Philippines use its people, its undeniable record-breaking workforce to elevate its global standing? But this vision requires courage. It means leaders must value Filipinos not just as dollar signs and remittances, but as the country's strongest global asset. It means demanding respect abroad and providing dignity at home, because the record proves one thing: Filipinos can no longer be ignored. Then consider the emotional side. Every Filipino who leaves home to work abroad carries a hidden cost. Missing birthdays, raising children through phone calls, enduring loneliness in a foreign land. And yet, even with these sacrifices, they set a world record that no other nation has matched. That should not just inspire pride, it should inspire action. If the world can't replace Filipinos, then Filipinos themselves must stop undervaluing their worth. Think of the future. By 2050, global demand for workers like Filipinos will explode. Populations in Europe, Japan, and the US are aging rapidly. The UN predicts that the Philippines will remain one of the few nations with a young, growing workforce. That makes Filipinos not just relevant, it makes them the future. Imagine that. The very workers the world once dismissed as replaceable will be the ones holding the keys to its survival. And here's where it gets even more powerful. This isn't just about jobs, it's about identity. The world record proves that Filipinos aren't just part of the system, they are the system. They are the ones holding up industries, keeping economies alive, and providing the human touch that technology can't replicate. That is a level of influence no algorithm can erase. But there's one last question. If the world now admits it can't replace Filipinos, when will the Philippines itself admit the same? When will leaders treat nurses, seafarers, teachers, and BPO workers not just as commodities, but as the country's crown jewel? That's the unfinished story. That's the future that hangs in the balance. Filipinos are irreplaceable. The record proves it. Now it's time to make sure the world, and the Philippines itself, never forgets. Comment visible if you believe it's time the Filipino people stop being hidden in the shadows of global labor and start being seen as the world's secret weapon. Because in the end, this record isn't just about what Filipinos have done, it's about what they will do, and how the world, for the first time, has no choice but to recognize it.